Today, I am going to talk to you about emotional abuse and how to cope as women of color. So, the first thing I want to do is talk about the reality that for many of us, we don't even talk about domestic violence in general. However, we definitely don't talk about emotional abuse because we assume that as strong Black women, and this illusion of us being magical is that we are able to take and give just as we are able to give as good as we take. And what happens is it doesn't allow us to really have a real conversation about some of the emotional abuse that is going on in our community, specifically to our Black and brown girls every single day. And so what I'm going to do is give a couple of examples of warning signs, and then I'm going to talk about coping. You guys, if you haven't already, I've done videos on this topic a few times because I take it very serious when it comes to loving Black women and Black and brown women, and us changing the conversation around how we're being treated. I want us to be aware of some of the things that are happening to us, and we're not even certain that it's abuse or not, but it also frames our self-image and our self-esteem about who we are. And so let me get right into some warning signs. Some of the warning signs is that they humiliate you in front of others. That's a simple one. People, they do things like make jokes about you in front of their friends or your friends, calling you names. And so I want to be a little bit more specific. For our culture, it might be as simple as saying, you know, she can't cook. You know, that girl, she's a hard head, right? So what they're doing is kind of putting you down in front of other people and making you feel bad about who you are and what you're capable of as a woman. And so as a result, what starts happening is that your esteem starts to go down and start to spiral and starts to, and you start to question yourself. Even if the person never put a hand on you, doesn't mean that they're not able to control you with abuse, and especially emotional abuse. Anyway, so the next one is they demean or degrade your opinions. So they call you stupid when you have a thought that doesn't match up or align with what they believe you should believe or believe about a subject. And so they tend to have this idea that they should be the correct person in the relationship and that you have no real opinion outside of what they believe. And anytime you try to assert that opinion or make a statement that is different from the individuals, they actually make you feel bad about it. That doesn't even make sense. You always come up with stupid ideas. These are just some of the things that might sound like, oh, well, maybe they just disagree with me. But it's constant. It's always that your ideas are demeaned or degraded and looked at as less important than his or another female, because this intimidation and emotional abuse does not only come from our male counterparts. Even in our relationship, women to women relationships, this can be happening because the tradition to abuse each other is also there. And so being very mindful that emotional abuse, regardless of the orientation of your sexual orientation, does impact you as a woman or a person in general. So they accuse you of being too sensitive. So if they say one of those statements about your thoughts being stupid and you challenge them, or you tell them that they hurt your feelings, all of a sudden, oh, you taking it too serious. I was just joking. I don't know why you take everything to heart. What they start to do is they diminish your ability to have vulnerability and to acknowledge that you have been hurt by something they've done or said. And they do that in a way that kind of makes it your fault. You're being too sensitive. You're thinking too much into this. It wasn't supposed to be that serious. So what they're doing is they're deflecting their actual abusive remark about who you are or what you think or how you think, and making it your issue, not theirs. And that's a part of what emotional abuse really is about. It really is about making you feel less than the person who's doing the action. And their goal is to make you feel bad about yourself and make you feel less confident in yourself and how you navigate the world. They try to control you with threats. If you have children, they do things like threaten to take away your children, threaten to tell people that you're a bad parent or not a healthy parent. And so we'll find that a lot of times in domestic violence, when there is a male and female and that person hasn't escalated to physical violence, they might start to use a threat of possibly hurting you or hurting their child. Like, you're going to make me hit you one day. Like, saying things. And honestly, in our culture, a lot of times it looks like a joke until it's not. And that becomes that part of us being able to see some of the warning signs, some of the reality that this person is going to and or could be trying to abuse me emotionally so that they can control me, which usually all domestic violence is related to power and control. And that's a whole nother video. But really, if you want, you, like I said, check out some of my older videos specifically on this subject. And then they try to make you feel as though they are always right and you're wrong. They're trying to make you look at how you deal with money and judging every move or action you make related to money. They're doing a lot of things that make you feel like you're walking on eggshells around them, where you are questioning your capabilities, your decision making. They're doing a lot of this through verbal exchanges. There is this sense that without them, you wouldn't be able to know these things or think. So in my own experience, I was with someone who constantly felt like they had to teach me things. And what I learned was that it made me constantly second guess myself, think about if I was making the right decision or if this was based off of some, in his case, he would use my past, some past hurt I've experienced. And what I really realized was that that was his way of controlling me and making me feel less confident in who I was as a woman. And this happens a lot without us even acknowledging, because it starts as, like I said, it's usually joking. It never is starting off, well, not never. In some cases, it can start off really extreme, but it usually is related to trying to control us in a way that kind of in the areas that we already question ourselves. And I have a belief that sometimes people pick up on our insecurities way before we do. And as a result, without them even knowing it, when they are unhealthy, they sometimes will use those same insecurities against us. And so everything is, like I said, we're using joking and considering jokes as part of how they control you. They always acknowledge all your flaws, your mistakes. You are not allowed to be human. So if you were 5 minutes late, it's like you broke all kind of curfews as if you're a child, when in reality you're a peer. And if you're in a relationship with a person, even more so a partner, and shouldn't be questioned on if you make a mistake or not, but supported, and even acknowledging that because you're human, everyone makes mistakes. You're allowed to be a person who doesn't do everything right. Like, it's impossible to ever please that person is also a part of being emotionally abused, right? Where you start to question, all right, will this meal be perfect? Will this food that I made, will the kids look right? Will there be something that they're constantly blaming me for? They also blame you for all of their unhappiness, right? So it's almost as if your existence is the reason why they're not successful, is the reason why they're not having the best life or the best day. And you become the clear catalyst for everything that goes wrong in the relationship or even in the person's life outside of even you. And so it's almost like you become the source of their unhappiness and have to find a way to please them and get them back to loving you and seeing you as the good for them. I don't believe that a lot of people will have a honeymoon stage. So some people will strictly be emotionally abusive throughout the entire relationship. And with that being said, it means that it also is diminishing your self-image and your self-esteem, because they normally never give you compliments on how you look, who you are, what you do right. They constantly acknowledge all the things that are not good about you in their eye. And as a result, you start to actually find yourself thinking more often about those things and how those things actually impact you. And so those are just some quick examples of emotional abuse because I really wanted to give you some ways to cope. So the first thing, I'm going to give you 5 ways to cope. Number 1, this is going to be real simple. If the person is unhealthy for you and you don't see an option for it to be changed, you can leave. That's number 1. So that's number 1. As simple as, if that person is making you feel bad, not love yourself, and questioning who you are as a woman and as a person in this world who deserves to be loved, you have the right to leave. So that's number 1. That's the one we all want for people, right? However, in those cases where that may not be your first thought to do, I would say making sure that you acknowledge daily what's good about you, what is the best things about you. And so I did a video on self-confidence, and I think it's important that if you want to build your self-confidence, that you know who you are every single day. And so making sure that you're balancing the negativity that you're hearing that is abusive with what's good about you and how do you be healthy. And so the first one is, you can always leave. You can take the choice to leave. The second is acknowledging what's good for you and good about you. The third is setting boundaries in the relationship with the person who is being abusive. Clearly telling them how what they're doing is hurting you, has hurt you, and what your expectation is moving forward. If they're capable of doing that, then great. I think it's awesome to be able to see a person blossom and change. And I do believe that all of us have the opportunity to be different, even when the perfect person is not always healthy. And so being able to acknowledge that may be something that you need to do out loud to them and set a boundary. So 1, leave. 2, acknowledge and keeping your own health under check in terms of who you are, and self-confidence is important. 3, making healthy boundaries. Now, 4 is going to be part of 3. Clearing up those boundaries immediately with a consequence when the person violates it, right? So I can set a boundary all I want, but if I do not say, hey, if you do this again, you and I are not going to be able to be friends. If you do this again, you and I will no longer date. If you do this again, you and I will have to consider counseling or going to get help and support. Being able to literally have a consequence that matches the boundary that you set. Without a consequence to it, the boundary literally will mean nothing in helping the person to do or make a change. So making sure that you set up an actual consequence to the boundary. So that's 4. That's 4. And last but definitely not least, going back to number 1, you can consider leaving until the person gets the help they need. So the first one is you can just leave and leave them behind. You don't have to worry about it. That's their life. If they're going to abuse somebody again, that's on them. However, there are those people who actually, as you love them and have loved them, you can help them make a change by not just leaving, but explaining to them that if they get the help and the support they need, you would be willing to come back into the relationship with both parties being on the same page of healthy. And so I do believe, and if you saw the video, I think a few weeks ago about how to deal with negative people, I do believe that the option of leaving is an option. I am never going to say stay somewhere where someone is hurting you emotionally or physically. I'm never going to say that. However, what I do acknowledge is that not all of us want the alternative of leaving, or not all of us want the option of leaving. We need to have alternatives that can also put us in a position to be healthier. And so what I would like to offer with that last one is not just leaving, but allowing yourself to leave for a time frame while that person gets the help. And then if that time frame they don't do what they have to do, you can make a decision for yourself to say goodbye forever. All right, so let's run those back real quick. Leave if you choose. That's number 1. You can if you want. Number 2, acknowledging and being responsible for your own self-confidence every single day. What's good about you? What's great about you? What makes you who you are, right? And then number 3, setting boundaries that are clear, concise, and then following them up, number 4, with consequences when they are violated. If you violate my boundaries and I do nothing, guess what you'll do again? You will violate them again. And then last but definitely not least, giving the person the opportunity to get healing without you being present. Leaving they get the help they need, and you get yours as well, because emotional abuse can bring out some hurtful realities for us as women, and we need to work on those things as well. But last but definitely not least, you can return after the person gets the help they need. And if by chance they don't, we go back to number one, which is that you have the freedom to be your healthiest self without someone trying to diminish your light. This channel is not just called Freedom to Shine for no purpose. It really is about us as Black and brown girls being able to declare our independence, acknowledge our ability to improve who we are, and to care for ourselves and each other as we do so. So I want you to make a change. If you have any questions related to this subject, feel free to comment. I will definitely respond, because I feel passionately about emotional abuse and the impact it has on Black and brown girls from as early as one, if you ask me, to us as adulthoods. So please comment below. If you feel like you enjoyed this video or any of the videos that you've seen, please subscribe. I'm going to be doing one every Monday, and I will continue to hopefully bring you good content around healing ourselves, caring for ourselves as Black and brown girls. All right, you guys, I love you. Take care. Be well.